Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about an experience I had many years ago, and hopefully we can unpack it and look at it, and it can be informative to us. How did this happen? How is this working as it passes through the brain? This all took place as I was getting ready to leave the ashram. I'd been working for the ashram for about 7 years. I'd been living in the ashram for over 5 years. That's when all of this came together. So let's get into it. So I'd been living in the ashram for quite some time, and I had come to the conclusion over and over and over again in my life that this was not for me. I was not in the right place. I needed my independence. I really enjoyed studying things, and I wanted to continue studying martial arts. I wanted to study whatever I wanted to study and not have people look down on me because I was reading a book that wasn't of a particular name that they wanted to see every single time. I'd read all of those books. So on a deep personal level, I was intuiting that this was not right for me. And it came to a critical moment, and I was in my room in the ashram, bawling my eyes out, praying to Divine Mother, my favorite form of the divine, my Ishta. I was praying to Divine Mother, and I'm sorry. I really intended to stay here my whole life, but it's just wrong, and I know it's wrong. And I was just bawling and bawling. And that's the first interesting part, because that release from the heart. See, I was holding myself down and it was wrong, and I released that and I cried, and that release of the meannesses of the heart, right? It allowed the roll up of consciousness, apparently, because as I was bawling on the floor, I felt the top of my head open up. And a bolt of lightning, not a physical lightning, of course, a spiritual lightning, went straight down through my spine. But when these things happen, you can't always tell the difference between what is internal and what is external. And it certainly shocked me. This huge bolt of lightning raced through my body, and it went straight down my spine and into my injured hip. Now, I had torn some ligaments in my hip, and it was causing a pinching of the sciatic nerve. And so for several years, I hadn't been able to figure out what was wrong, why this was continuing. I kept seeing therapist and doctor and therapist and doctor, and they were really having a really hard time figuring out exactly what was wrong. And they tried many different things, but nothing was really helping. And so I would get up and I would walk for 5 minutes, and I would feel as if a hot water faucet was going down my leg. It was just causing the entire sciatic nerve to constrict all of the muscles, and it was unrealistic at that time for me to walk more than 15 or 20 minutes. It was crazy. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so young and I'm an old man already. I can't walk. What am I going to do? All of that was far from my mind. It was completely not in my mind at all. But it was in my heart. And as I was praying, bawling on the floor, and the lightning went through me, it struck right into that injured hip. And I knew it was some form of a healing, a blessing from the higher self. And then I heard Divine Mother. And this is strange because I didn't hear it with my physical ears, you understand? And I didn't hear it as it was a voice in my head. That can happen. I heard it as the voiceless voice. So there are some old Christian saints, and they talk about this voiceless voice, right? And I believe this is what they're describing, that the voice is known. You know the words, you don't hear them. And if you've had that experience, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, it probably sounds like a riddle. It's just, that's how it happened. I heard this voiceless voice, and she told me, now you can walk forward in your life. And so, first of all, my mind was blown from the experience. I'd never had an experience like this. Top of my head opened up so far, the lightning came straight through me. There was a blessing, there was a healing, and then she spoke to me. And it's as if she knew me. Imagine the most insightful, intuitive, psychic therapist on the face of the planet, and they tell you something in such a way that you know that they know you down to your bones. That's, of course, how the higher self knows you. And at first, it's quite a shock. Oh my God, that's so amazing and insightful and perfect for my life. And then it happens again and again and again in your life, and you get used to it. You just know that that's a sign of the higher self, that they know you like nobody knows you. And that's why I always say the true guru is internal, because no one on the face of this planet is going to know you like that. I've got the book. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. That's a koan, right? A riddle. What does it mean? What are they trying to say? Look, if you meet somebody which you believe is perfectly divine, and you're looking outside of yourself at somebody else and saying they are divine, well, you need to kill that idea in your mind, because it's wrong. The true divinity will always be an internal experience. You can look outside, you can look up to somebody, you can learn from somebody, they can teach you things, you can gather things, but the true insight will always come from inside, right? Always, always, always. And that's what this Buddhist riddle is all about. So it just floored me for months that it was so insightful, that this healing that started to take place from that moment, and this development in my life, that I was stuck in an ashram which I knew was wrong for me, and I needed to leave, and I wasn't leaving. I was going through it very, very, very methodically, making sure this was the correct choice for me. And Divine Mother's like, finally, look, it's gonna work. This is you moving forward. Do you get it? Now you can move forward in your life. And that stuckness was manifesting as a physical ailment in my body. I ripped something in my hip, and I literally could not walk forward more than 5 minutes. And it all became one. The external world and the internal world, they all became one. And it just blew my mind forever. To this day, it blows my mind. These kinds of magical things can happen when we have a roll-up of consciousness back towards the brain. And that's what the Kriya Yoga is all about. So we're learning to enter into the low idle state with HRV resonance while we are sitting very still. And we're going to notice the parasympathetic is actually starting to work. And that's the 4 proofs. They're proving to you that your parasympathetic system has turned on. Oh my God, it's amazing. And right there, you are ready, right there. And then we do some Om Japa in the chakras, and that clears the way. We want to clear the way, the same way that crying on the floor was a cathartic experience, and it cleared out my heart. Whatever blockage and fear I had, I cleared it out in that moment. And that allowed the consciousness to go up. So I could receive the message from the higher self that takes place through the brain. And that's what the yogis are talking about when they say, sit at the feet of the guru. It's not an external experience. You can sit at the feet of a teacher. Wonderful. Amen. But the real experience is internal. Ashok Ji told me, go up into the medulla. Lodge yourself powerfully into the medulla. How do you do that? Through these processes. HRV resonance, Om Japa, and the chakras. Become very powerfully rolled up into the brain and sit at the feet of the divine. And Google God, he told me. That's where you Google God. In that region, you have a chance to touch the deep brain. And that's exactly what happened in this experience. What happens in a dualistic experience of this kind is the charge in the left amygdala. The left amygdala is how we're going to have a dualistic experience, right? The higher self, in whatever form, comes to you in a very loving, caring, blissful, joyful way, and that's all taking place through the left amygdala, even if it doesn't seem that blissful and joyful to you. It certainly ought to be very inspiring, and that inspiration also comes from the left amygdala, that deep, pure, joyful inspiration. So that's all taking place through the left amygdala in the brain. I'm not saying that's the source, I'm saying that's the window. You understand? And that charge builds up, it becomes so big, which is why we want to do the cute baby meditation, right? Why we want to do this over and over again. We want to grow that left amygdala so that charge becomes stronger and stronger, and it has a chance more and more often to overflow. And when it overflows, guess what's right next door? The left hippocampus, the center of language. And that's when this kind of message can drop on you. Whether you hear it in actual words, whether you hear it as the voiceless voice, whether you feel it as a knowing, you just kind of know the message, or it might come to you in a vision. Doesn't matter. All of those are wonderful. All of those are from the higher self. And I like to say that there's a flavor to it. Now you are used to your mind. You're used to the conscious mind. You know what that flavor is, right? And then you know it in everybody else. You know the flavor of the conscious mind, right? The daily grind. We know that. And then you get sleepy. And so if you hang out in that area, that alpha, theta, delta, and you get to know that grogginess, that sleepiness, my Qigong friend used to tell me over and over again, great, now you know the form, now do it sleepy. And we would go back and do the whole form, but do it very sleepy and enter into those slower brain waves. Now you're getting to know the subconscious, and there's a flavor to it. There's a sleepiness, a grogginess. So now we know too, we know the conscious mind, we know the subconscious mind. And this inspiration, this pure love, this pure knowing, this pure joy, this knowing you on a level which nobody knows you, that's the superconscious mind. And when you touch it, when you just barely touch the hem of that knowing, then amazing things can happen. Amazing things. And so you might have this kind of a radical download. And some people, they look for this huge experience, but a lot of times it's just like, oh, okay, you're just walking along, you get a download. Something which evaded you before in the past becomes known to you. The riddle is solved. It unfolds for you, and you get it, and you just go, oh, okay. And you just keep walking down your life. That's a very small download, but they can be quite large, like this one was for me. But that's how it happens. When there is language, it means the charge has overflown from the left amygdala and it's fallen into the left hippocampus, and it comes to you. The meaning, the knowing, the understanding comes to you in the form of language. That's how that is possible. That's how it falls out as it passes through the brain. Amazing, right? Oh my God. Who talks about this? Nobody. That understanding right there, that comes from Todd Murphy. Nobody else talks about this. I've never seen anybody else explain that so clearly. That comes from Todd Murphy. And how did all of this happen? We cleared the way. We got the body out of the way with the low idle state and the freeze response. Then we got all of our lower concerns out of the way with the Om Japa in the chakras. And maybe some kind of therapy like Huna or timeline therapy or just talking therapy. Wonderful. We get those issues out of the way and we get closer and closer back to the brain. And that's where the magic happens, in the deep brain. And if it's powerful enough, as it passes through the left amygdala, it can fall into the left hippocampus and boom, language will appear. And so all of this was to tell you a story. I've been on YouTube now for some time talking about Om Japa and the chakras, writing a book talking about Om Japa in the chakras over and over again. I love it. Teaching Kriya Yoga, which has Om Japa in the chakras in it. over and over again. And one day I was sitting in meditation. I was just about to come out, and Divine Mother whispers to me, "You're my own king." And I thought, oh, how sweet. Oh my God, how sweet. And that's how the divine will play with you sometimes. It was beautiful. It was kind. It was sweet. It was fun. That's why it's so powerful to begin to have an inkling of what the divine might look like. We want to contemplate that. What is divine to us? Because every once in a while I see, very rarely nowadays, but every once in a while I see yogis who are still afraid. They have fearful ideas, which that's why we do Navi, right? We got to do the Navi, because as you get into the deep brain, you want to skip the hurdle of the right amygdala. You want to get past that as easily as possible. You want to get past that, and Navi every day is going to help you with that. At least one round of Navi every single day. Highly, highly recommended, and that's why I say it's one of the 3 insurance policies, right? It's going to ensure that you have a great experience with Kriya Yoga and you don't run into trouble. That's why we want to do those 3 insurance policies every day. Mahamudra, Navi Kriya, Om Japa in the chakras. Those keep us safe in deep meditation. But having this idea of what the divine is, expanding your mind that far, chunking up that far, and contemplating the divine, it's a form of meditation. It's actually getting you ready for some of these deep states. It's going to make it easier for all of these experiences to come to you, just like the cute baby meditation is going to help you. It's actually a form of Hakala. If you can contemplate the beauty and the hugeness and the inspiration and the understanding and the kindness of the divine, it will help you profoundly so that you can know the flavor of the divine. There's a flavor of the conscious mind. There's a flavor of the subconscious mind. And there's a flavor of the higher self. There's a taste to it. There's a beauty and a grandeur and a gloriousness and an inspiration, a knowing, an understanding, a kindness, a compassion. All of these high ideals are held in the higher self. What Freud called the superego, what Jung called the superconsciousness, it's all there. And so even just contemplating that will help clear the way. So I told this story to one of my students, that Divine Mother said that I was her Om King, and it was very beautiful. And I shared that with him, and he was very inspired. This is Doug Gemmell, and every time you come on one of my videos and you hear the little music, which is at the beginning and the end of the video, all of that comes from Doug. Doug is amazing. He's been supporting me all this time. He has his own channel, and he has a song now, which was inspired by these teachings. So I hope you'll go over there, check out his channel, go ahead and subscribe. It's really beautiful, very, very moving and inspirational. It's wonderful. I love to have it on while I'm reading a deep and beautiful book, and sometimes the story comes along and the music comes along just at the right moment, and it's just beautiful. So I hope you'll check that out. Very inspirational. Put it on while you're reading a book, or maybe even you're doing a very free, fun meditation and you need a little inspirational music. I highly recommend his channel. He's wonderful. He's really put his heart into this channel. He was a teacher of music for years and years, a professional performer, and just the kindest, sweetest soul. So I hope you'll go over to his channel and subscribe. I'm going to have the link below. So I hope this gives you some insight into how these things take place inside of us, how the Kriya Yoga, how the Om Japa and the low idle state is preparing us for these deep experiences as we get close to the brain, and even just touching, barely touching the hem of the robe of the deep brain creates amazing things in our lives. So I hope you love this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you.